How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Stag. I'm here with Ben Logan, who's coming to us from Wanaka. I'll just premise this with Ben. It's amazing how sort of, vibes and universe, if you will, brings people together. Earlier in the year, Joe Rogan had a gentleman on his podcast called Dan Doty from the Everyman podcast. And he is establishing a movement which has been going for about 20 years in the States, where men come together in groups, and Dan's sort of talking about how powerful that movement can be, meeting up with other men, discussing men's topics, and then he's exploring the outdoors. And Instagram being as it is, the boys from Organic Mechanics, shout out to them, were down in Central Otago with this gentleman that we've got right here, Ben Logan, and New Age Primal, and it was just one of those real synergistic moments, and I was like, boom, got to follow this guy, this looks awesome. So Ben, if you could introduce yourself, who are you today, mate?
I'm just a very humble gentleman who lives in the mountains down in Wanaka, who just enjoys helping people, enjoys helping myself, and is always pushing for improvement, I guess.
Fantastic, mate. And just to premise yourself, who was Ben Logan as a 5-year-old?
Good question. I like being put on the spot. Just someone trying to learn who he was, trying to discover himself. Something that took a lot longer than 5 years of age to realize. But just living in Auckland, just figuring out where I fitted into the place, I guess.
What do you think a defining characteristic of a 5-year-old would be? Curiosity, would you say?
Definitely curiosity. Yeah. Just a sense of adventure. Just trying to discover things.
And where did that sort of take you?
To where I am now, or from moving on from 5?
A bit of both. Sort of as a 5-year-old, what sort of things were you exploring and finding out about, and then how's that taken you through to today, living in the mountains?
We were lucky enough to live in Auckland, obviously the city, but we had a lot of freedom. We spent a lot of time at the Waitikeries, out towards Piha region. So we were blessed with the outdoors. That was something Mum always put across to us and always allowed us, which was good. So I think I had a taste for it growing up, experienced it. And I think those younger ages, they really set the tone for who you're going to become later in life, which I think is very important. You know, we've got a 9-month-old daughter, nearly 10-month-old, and just those first years are so critical for development. And like I said, it really sets the tone for who they're going to become later in life, I guess. And I think, that's played out with me and my love for this sort of environment.
Fantastic. And I'm an expecting father next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What was that moment like of holding your daughter for the first time?
A lot of people ask it, and I still haven't been able to find the words. It's just the most out of this world feeling you probably ever have. It's there's such a build up, and you go through such a phase of the different stages of pregnancy, obviously from a supportive role. But once you get through the birth and you realize everything's fine, everything's safe, and she's going to be, whatever baby you're going to have is going to be fine. It's just, it's a feeling you can never put into words. Just when they finally come out, they're born, and just seeing this baby that you've had a very weird relationship with for the last 9 months.
Nice, mate. And I see on your Instagram you've got a hell of a rig for taking your daughter out in the wilderness. What was the first stage for doing that?
The first stage?
Yeah.
We took her up to the first alpine cabin we went to at about 6 weeks.
Awesome.
Up at Snow Farm on the Pisa Range. But we took her out. And that's the thing, they're a product in their environment. So we wanted to get her out into town, into new settings and different environments from about, the first week. Obviously with a lot of caution and care and safety, but I think just get them out young, get them doing things, and experience the life that you live and the life you love.
Awesome. Now we were supposed to catch up on Friday, and unfortunately you caught a bit of a lurgy. But I think it's quite good that we're speaking this morning on the 1st of November. I've had a shave, and
I shaved yesterday as well. Yeah.
nice mate. Are you growing the slug?
Probably not.
You'll
Probably
be
not.
you'll be moving every day, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, I shaved by coincidence just by yesterday. I didn't even realize the date, to be honest, but yeah.
So it is a good coincidence. I think that's where you and I sort of probably find a good balance, is that we're both promoting men's health
Yes.
or health and well-being as a subject. How does New Age Primal approach that factor?
We're actually going through a bit of a rebrand and looking at changing name in the next little while, but it's just, it's just been an interest of mine. It started as a personal development sort of, not quest, but just an interest in personal development. That came a big hobby, that came a lot of research, that came a lot of case studies, that came a lot of working with friends, that came to the idea of starting a business. But for me, I mean, we've all got to spend the time we have here doing something. And I think if we can spend that time doing something we really enjoy, something that's beneficial, something that contributes, something that gives back, I think, in turn, that's going to make us a much happier person. So for me, in New Age Primal, it's just, we live in a world where it's not conducive for health. It's not conducive for happiness. Um, and, stick to your strengths. And my strengths are working with men. Um, the goal for me and the goal with the work I do is just to help men live a better quality of life, teach them to perform at their absolute best, and that can be in any aspect, and also how to survive in this world at their absolute best. And I think that's a very critical factor that gets left out, whether it be urban wilderness survival, everyday survival, and just, the mindset strategies just to get through the world and navigate the world we live in.
Fantastic. Now we've got some pretty horrific suicide statistics, especially in men and especially in people in a rural environment. Do you have any theories on why, as a country, we're so isolated from each other and can let depression and mental illness get the better of us?
Yeah, that's something. I mean, nutrition gets taken, puts the spotlight on, physical performance, get the spotlight's always on that. But mental health is something that I think is always left under the radar, and something there's something that needs addressing. I think a lot of people in this world, they don't have a purpose. They don't have a reason to wake up in the morning. They don't have something that they absolutely love to do. And I think, intrinsically, I do a lot of work with evolutionary health, ancestral health. And, throughout evolution, we've had a purpose. We've had a tribe. We've been part of something bigger than ourselves. We've always had something to do. Normally look after our family, protect, go hunt and gather. In the last couple of 100 years, that's changed. And Sebastian Junger does a lot of work in this area. Very clever man. He started as a war journalist, but he's wrote a very good book called Tribe that sort of delves into this a lot. But I think a huge percentage of the population, women as well, just don't have a purpose in life. Very confused. The content of social media, just the modern lifestyle, like I said, is not conducive to happiness or health, mental health in particular. And from there, things can spiral very, very quickly. But I've also seen the other end of the spectrum as well, that once people sort of do realize, their purpose in this life, what their interests, their love, what they want to do, you can also see the spike back and how quickly they can bounce back into positivity as well.
Fantastic. You touched on social media there. You obviously use that as a tool to promote. It's how I connected with you. What sort of tools and balances do you use to not have social media control your life and control your feelings?
It's a very hard line to walk, and I don't think there's a right answer for that. I think everyone's got to find their own sort of what suits them best, what fits them best. I mean, for me, it's a marketing tool. My goal is to help men, but for me to be able to do that, I've got to actually get my message out to men. So it's an incredibly powerful and free marketing tool. And I think without it, it's very hard to have a thriving business or using social media at all. So again, you've just got to find where your line is and be confident with that and stick with it. But yeah, for me, I want to have an authentic message, a message that I actually live. I'm not going to put content out there that I'm not actually doing or that I don't believe in. So again, use it for the good. I don't sit there trolling. Or no, I do. It's hard to say you're not going to sit there trolling other people's accounts and looking at photos. I enjoy seeing photos. I enjoy seeing what people are doing. I enjoy it a lot more than Facebook, to be honest. But I'm a visual person. I like seeing images and videos, but you've just got to be careful you don't tip it to the other side and fall off that line. And I think, just being confident, honest with yourself, and just deciding, what makes you happy with social media and what's going to serve you and what's going to go the other, rock the boat too far.
Great. Do you have any specific channels that you get inspiration or get enjoyment out of?
There's a couple. There's a new one actually that I really enjoy called Northman. It's a bunch of Scandinavian men who master craftsmen. They make swords, knives, axes, tools, houses, and they've just made craft. The highest craft possible. That's what they do, and I think it's something that's sort of lacking these days is time, patience, and craftsmanship. So I really enjoy that account. That they take great photos and great videos. So I really enjoy watching their work. It's inspiring for me.
No, so it's probably ties in well with what you're talking about, a pursuit, and that often you hear people talk about their search of mastery with something like that. Last night, yesterday, I was trying to jack up to talk to you. You were at jiu-jitsu last night, and it's something that everybody seems to be doing these days. Even a mate who's a teacher up here in the Waikato's into the jiu-jitsu. What is it about this, martial art that all of a sudden has become a phenomenon? What is it? What's in it for you?
To be honest, it's my second class, so I don't have a very educated perspective on speaking about it. But I can speak from a very uneducated. I've done different forms of martial arts in the past, a bit of military-based combatives, close quarter training, things like that. There seems to be a very rich history that goes along with it, along with many other martial arts. But for me, it's just, I don't sort of ever want to associate myself with one type of martial arts. I think a very well-rounded approach is very beneficial and useful. But for me, again, just learning the craft, learning the history, learning its roots, its origins, and how I can take the best aspects of that and put it in my life, implement it in my life. But yeah, I don't have a particularly educated viewpoint to answer that, I guess. But I think it's just a useful skill, a very practical skill people can use, a skill that gives people confidence. Is the best way I can answer that yet. But hopefully we can speak in the future. I can give a much deeper understanding to that question.
For everyone out there, this is the first time that Ben and I have spoken. So we're flying by the seat of our pants. You speak about finding the history, and when you created New Age Primal, you did a lot of research. How do you sort of attack a topic in terms of your research and learning more? And is that what you always do, or do you do a little bit of trial and error?
Combination. I think I did a talk at the Ancestral Health Society of New Zealand Symposium 2 weeks ago, and that was on cold water immersion. And I think one of the things I said was we live in a world of science. We live in a world of knowledge. Everyone knows a lot of shit, like we know stuff, but the amount of people who can actually turn that knowledge into sustainable action is very limited. And I think that's a big disconnect in the world we live in, whether it be the health world, the wellness, whatever world you associate yourself with. There's too much knowledge, I think. Everyone knows stuff. Knowledge is easy. There's more than enough knowledge on the internet and in people's heads, but I think actually turning that knowledge into a strategy, how do you strategize it and how do you actually make it useful so people can use it? That's the area that interests me the most and I think is lacking. So I think, for people moving forward, I think, knowledge is key. You've got to start with knowledge, but I think also having that understanding of now's the time I've actually got to use it, I've got to action this, is what actually, turns it into strategy. So for me, I do a lot. Enjoy research. I enjoy research. I enjoy the understanding. I enjoy the concepts. I enjoy the foundation of what I'm actually practicing. So I did a lot of study from a scientific point of view, from an evolutionary point of view, from an ancestral point of view, and sort of the goal for me is to find ways you can actually implement that into a modern world. I mean, ancestral health is the understanding of where we've come from, our past. A lot of our ancestors didn't have the physiological or physical illnesses or destruction that we have these days. But again, we have a very different playing field. We have a modern society, we have jobs, we have work, we have different sort of chronic stresses that we have to deal with. So, the playing field is different, and I think we need to adapt to that as well. So, yeah, different forms of research, and finding cutting edge ways to actually implement it to make that knowledge useful.
And has that ever been in a formal capacity, or is
No,
it?
it hasn't. Not at all. No, I've never studied a day at a formal institution in my life. I've studied a lot of the research papers and a lot of the places that those institutes study from. So I try and get the best quality of research papers that I can find, medical, scientific literature and journals. And I've been fortunate enough to do some very good work, some very good professionals in medical capacities and health capacities. So again, for me, I haven't studied at a formal institution, but I seek out the best people in any area that I want to research from, and work from there.
Great. And while we're there, if you could touch on how did you come in contact with, is it your business partner, Dr. Greg?
Greg, yes, Greg's got a little less to do with it now, just the logistics of, he's based in Brisbane, he's got a clinic there. So he will come over for our bigger courses, but financially and time-wise for him to come over for a smaller course, it's just not viable. I actually met Greg in Wanaka. You spoke at the start how the universe provides things like that, and how we connected through the organic mechanic, etc. I actually met Greg just at a cafe down here, and we just bumped into each other, and for some reason exchanged what we did, and just had an immediate connection. And I think that day or the next day we went out pine pollen foraging, and jumped in the river, did some swimming together, and we've just been connected at the hip ever since, and talking 3 or 4 times a day. And yeah, it's just with this sort of work, the work you do, the work this sort of community does, it's there's a lot of us, but we're still quite rare. So I think when you find someone like that, you find someone you have a connection with, you hold on to it pretty tight.
Nice. A lot to break down in that little spiel, but what's it like having a mentor, and what do you get out of having a mentor?
Wisdom, knowledge, perspective, experience. I think I know a lot of stuff, but Greg, for example, he's been around the bush many times. He's older, in his mid-50s or early 50s, sorry, but just experience, different perspectives, learning from hardship, learning from success, different stories, different ways to do things. Just experience and perspective, I think, are the two main attributes that I look for.
Does it allow you, do you think, the confirmation in what you're doing, his experience and the fact that he's been through stuff, does it give you that opportunity? Because I know for myself, I play over a situation in my head and wonder, is it viable? But having someone who's been through it and asking them, is this the right thing to do? Is that quite a good?
I think it's very important. I think it's key to have a very tight-knit tribe of men around you that you can trust. Again, like, we live in a world where we just live in a very warped world, a world that's not actual reality. For example, I've got I've got about 60 friends on Facebook. I've got 60 friends on Facebook because I know they're friends and people that I trust, and then I can call on at any time. We live in a world where there's I've got so many followers, I've got this many friends on Facebook, but if you actually ask the question, how many would actually come around and help you in the next half hour if you really needed it? It'd be 1% at most, 3 or 4 people. So yeah, for me, I like to have a very tight-knit group of men around me that I can talk to for advice, perspective, experience. I can bounce ideas and philosophies off, and it's reassuring. They're always there to reassure me that what I'm thinking, where I'm going with this is on the right path, or it might not be. But at least I trust their opinion on it.
Lovely. Uh, and with this, you speak about having a good group of men, and we're in, like you say, maybe an illusionary society, which is quite androgynous, and it can be often difficult to talk about masculinity and without being labelled chauvinistic, if you will. How would you frame this sort of work in terms of men and primalness and ancestral health? How do you think it touches back to our core and allows us to actually be a better person and a more accepting person?
Well, it's who we are. I think we live in a, going back to my talk at the Ancestral Health Symposium the other week, one of the biggest problems is we live in such a technologically advanced world now. We can build spaceships, we can build new buildings, we can build cities, technologically we can do anything. And that's not a bad thing. It comes with some downsides, but it's not always a bad thing. But one of the biggest problems I think it's caused is that we assume that our psychology and our physiology has evolved in the same manner, when in actual fact we're still running off very ancient software that's very clever, very adaptive, very efficient, but it's just different to the world we live in now. And I think that's something that we need to understand very clearly, is the world we live in is not something we're adapted to. And I think that's where a lot of physical illness comes from, a lot of psychological illness comes from. So I think, before we can move forward, obviously, I think the reason you're probably doing this work, the reason Dan Doherty, I actually spoke to him in a bit of a podcast with him a couple of months back. The reason Sebastian Junger's doing this work, the reason Organic Mechanics doing this work, is we realize there are problems. We realize there are problems, and we want to use our knowledge, our experience, our perspective to help other men, help other people. But I think before we can move forward, we need to understand where we've come from. It's a lot easier to win the game when you know the playbook. So we've got to really understand that we're running off different software than we think we are, and that really ties back to our ancestral roots, our ancestral past, our primal software basically. And we know there's things in that are intrinsic to us as humans, and we know there's things that are extrinsic to humans. Things that we don't need in our life, that's social media, that's the pressures from it, that's having a job we don't enjoy, that's sitting in traffic 6 hours a day, 6 hours a week, that's eating food that is just not biologically suited to us. But we know there's things that are intrinsic to us as well, things we need to thrive as a species, as humans, as men. Those are to feel valued, to feel loved, to be part of a tribe, to have a purpose in life, to have a reason to wake up in the morning. We know we need food, we need hormetic stresses, we need hardship, we need rest, we need recovery, we need insight, we need perspective, we need experiences, positive experiences. So, just through history and just through common sense, we know there are things that we need to be happy, need to be successful, need to thrive in this world. And that really does come back to our ancestral roots. But I think before we can really understand that, I think that concept of the fact that we are running off different software to what we assume we are in a modern world, I think is very, very important.
I couldn't agree more. One sort of theory that I've come up with is that you speak about the tribe, and often the tribe has elders and levels of elders, and especially in a world where we grow up, and now in social media where they have this constant of I was reading an article the other day that they no longer go home and get away from the bully. They no longer go home and mum and dad are there to love them, and then they find solace in their phone with their friends, but at the same time with their bullies, and that bogs them down. For me, I went to university, and the people that were the mentors and things were just a year older than me, 19-year-olds and things, teaching 18-year-olds, you're free, you're now away from home, you're now an adult, if you will, when you're nowhere near. Do you think that we're lacking this sort of rite of passage from the right people, as opposed to going to university and getting plastered and
That was the exact phrase or quote or words I was actually going to use, a rite of passage, and I think it's something that is, it's not lacking, it's non-existent, it doesn't exist. That's something 4 generations was absolutely lost. So it's not lacking. I don't think it's there in the first place. But I think it's something that is extremely necessary and extremely beneficial, and it's something that's needed. So yeah, I mean, I think I traditionally, ancestrally, cultures, like you said, we had elders, we had different tiers of our tribe, and they came with different they had different purposes, I guess, different meanings, different offerings to offer us back to the young. And yeah, that's lacking these days. I mean, my father left when I was 2 days old. My stepfather was a very abusive man. He divorced my mum when I was 10. So I didn't grow up with a really good father figure. And a lot of the other, traditional men in this age, or the 21st century, they're still dealing with a lot of problems. I mean, I think, yourself and me and men of our age, we're not the only ones with these problems. This goes back multi-generationally. This goes back 3 or 4 generations, or 2 to 3, actually, I would say, of men growing up with misinformation, lack of purpose, lack of a rite of passage. But, you go past that a little bit further, those traditions seem to kick in a lot more. So, yeah, we don't have a rite of passage anymore. We don't have these cultures, these traditions, these this knowledge is not passed on. It's not held in a way that's conducive for the development of young men. But I think that's something that I'm going to try doing with my family. That's something that I look to Greg for, and other elders for. But it's something that's critical, I think, in development of men.
no, it's something that the more I listen to the likes of Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss,
Yeah.
Dan,
This stuff isn't rocket science. Like I said, we get stuck in this world of fictional stories. There's a great book called Sapiens. I don't know if you've read that or not.
keep hearing about this book.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's by a Jewish professor called Yuval Harari, and he had a couple of objectives for the book, and one was to figure out how we ended up where we are now, basically, to put it in a very crass way. One of the things he realized was that we're one of the only animals who can believe in fictional stories. Now, for example, if you try and get a chimpanzee to believe in certain ideologies, and when he passes, he'll get all the bitches and bananas he wants, that means nothing to him. If I say to my dog, Masker, like, give me back your bone, and if you're good, I'll give you 2 tonight, it means nothing. We're the only, and it's not a bad thing as well. It's brought us many great things, but we have this weird ability to believe in fictional stories. The idea of a podcast, that's a fictional story. The idea of a schooling, Donald Trump politics, Border Patrol, the Federal Reserve, they're not actual reality. Reality is performance and survival. And we live in a world now where everything is based on fictional stories. You wake up, you have your Weet-Bix, you have a hard training, you have a Powerade, you get a McDonald's, you get a salad because that's healthier for you. Everything's fictional stories, basically. That's how we live our life. And again, it's not a bad thing. It's brought us many great things and luxuries, and it's ensured our survival in certain ways. But it has taken away things that are intrinsic and actual are reality. And we just live in such a modern way of thinking, like we assume that all of this stuff has happened like in the last 50, 60 years, when in fact we take that away. I'm going to go back 500 years, 1,000 years, and there's just such a rich history and culture and health, wellness, positivity, strength, resilience that can be taken from that area. I do a lot of study and have an immense interest in Native American culture. And the reason for that is they have such a abundant learning environment for their kids. Their men are such warriors. They're strong, and they're stronger and more resilient than our Olympic athletes. And the reason for it is they had to do that. They had to become those people, those men, so they could look after their children, and they can ensure the longevity of their tribe, their culture. They knew what foods to eat. They had incredible situational awareness. They were incredible scouts. They were warriors. They were fathers. They were lovers. They were medicine men, and just that they had to do that to survive, basically. Now we don't quite have that. If we don't do that, we just go to the doctor. We call someone. We outsource our problems. We're not self-reliant anymore. So I guess, when you take away this modernism, this modern way of thinking, these modern ideologies, and you take a good look back through history, there's incredible things to be learned. There's also bad things to be learned. And I think if we can find that right balance and walk the line of taking the best from our past and combining it with the best of now, the best of modern science, the best of modern living, I think that's where you've struck gold, I think.
Nice. And you said there about the best things you can learn. What if you can, what do you think was positive about your experience growing up with, like you said, your biological father leaving and a stepfather who wasn't the greatest role model? How did you find male role models, or how did you shape your idea of a man, if you will?
Very difficultly, to be honest. A lot of confusion, anger, challenges growing up from that, I guess. But firstly, it taught me the type of father I never wanted to be. And perhaps without that, I wouldn't be the father I am now, and the father I hope to be in the future. So, in everything bad, there's always something good, I always believe. But again, just that intrinsic feeling of, going back to ancestral roots, when you are introduced to people around you who have those traits of an incredible father figure, you just know it to be right. I had a very good coach in Auckland called Jack Rolson. He coached Hamish Carter and Cameron Brown for many years. He was trained under Peter Snell in the Lydiard era. Incredible triathlon and running coach, and he was just an amazing man. Loving, caring, knowledgeable, always there at the drop of a hat, and it just screamed a father figure. I've had others throughout my life as well, and been lucky enough to have those in my life and in my surroundings. And again, they just have the traits that you're attracted to as a young man. They're supportive, they're loving, they're caring, they offer wisdom, they listen. And I think when you have one polar opposite of the worst level of father, or the worst level of fatherhood, and when you sort of get introduced to the other end of that, that the best of it is very obvious very quickly.
Cool. No, that's I like what you said, that it is so intrinsic to recognize, what is right.
Yeah. And I think that's something we lack as well. We don't trust our gut. We don't actually feel things anymore. We live in we think about it, but we don't feel things anymore. And just that gut feeling, just that the ability to actually have emotions, have feelings, and to have confidence, and to actually action those feelings, I think is something that's lacking as well.
Absolutely. I'm extremely lucky that I had two sets of grandparents and a very strong father figure around. But I definitely think that growing up, there was something that I didn't do and probably still struggle to do, is engage with how I feel and yeah, go with that gut. Like I said, I've 1,001 thoughts going on and no idea how to execute any of them, and it's the more you sort of look at what makes someone great, and it's usually nothing special. It's just the fact that they did it and they went after the thing that they were passionate about.
Yeah.
Is that what sort of threw you into starting a business? Like, as you said, no formal
education. Yeah, it is. I mean, going back, let's just take a quick look at the path that most men, or women as well, everyone goes down. We go to school because this is what we do. Some schools are great, some schools are average. I had a pretty average school, but again, some schools are incredible for learning and development in all areas. Then from there, what do? We're kind of sick of school. We've developed a few problems through our growing up phase. Then we either go on a bit of an OE for a while, just to escape, or we get forced into uni. And it's not usually something that we want to do. It's something we've been given some parameters of things that could be nice, and we just kind of go with it just because we're kind of supposed to. Everyone else is doing it. Your friends are doing it. So again, we get to the age of between 20 and 30, and we actually haven't actually realized what we love to do, or really trusted or had the confidence or skills to trust our instincts, our own mindsets. And this is something I really enjoy. So it normally gets to a bit of a midlife crisis, and then men sort of think, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna do something I really enjoy. So yeah, having that confidence from a young age is hard in this era that we live in. But I think it's something, if we can develop some sort of confidence, that you take something, just take the confidence to action things you enjoy, things that feel right. We've been talking about intrinsic feelings today, but going back personally for me, yeah, it was something that I didn't do at all growing up. Early 20s, I started to get these feelings, and started to experiment with it a bit more in mid 20s. And I guess the catalyst was actually moving to Wanaka from Auckland. I stayed in Auckland far too long. It's a great city. I enjoy the place, but I got very complacent with it and got very stagnant. So staying there wasn't a good thing for me. So I think, yeah, the catalyst was actually moving here. And I think from there, I started to be a lot more confident with making decisions of things that I really enjoyed, things that felt right, gut feelings. And I think it's, ended up with where I'm at now and the work I do.
Lovely. I think the biggest fear for me, and it was something I was speaking with my partner last night about, is that there's a certain pressure on a young man's shoulders that you need to be the provider, you need to be successful, you need to do all these things. But then there's also, if you think about it, that actually comes from nowhere. Starting out a business and obviously being a clean slate and having nothing, how do you sort of shake that feeling of, I'm the provider, I need to be bringing something in, and follow the passion and the enjoyment and the vision of what can be achieved? How did you sort of, what was your self-talk around getting through that?
A couple of different layers. I mean, I went from racing triathlon, a struggling triathlete. Then I got quite sick for about 5 years. I had epilepsy quite badly, which I've sort of managed to cure and get around that. And then I was like, well, living in Wanaka, there's not a lot of opportunities. There's tourism, there's adventure, which I'm not really trained for, and there's trade, which I can't even put a fucking nail in a wall, and there's hospitality. So in terms of a career longevity wise in Wanaka, or the place I lived, there wasn't many options. And I'm not particularly good at many things either. I'm very good at a small handful of things, but in terms of a wide range of things, I'm not very good at many things. So I just wanted to create something. I wanted to use my skill set that I've developed and honed. And so yeah, that was basically, I had to make a job for myself basically to stay in this sort of environment. So that's the first answer to your question. The second thing is, a lot of people, what is a provider? A provider to me is someone who has a purpose, who's happy, who can, I guess, financially in the world, contribute and provide for the family, pay the bills, the mortgage, pay for food and other things. But also be, the essence of what a provider is. Provider in a modern world is making money, and that's it. That they go to a job they hate most of the time. But the modern meaning of a provider is financial. How can they pay the bills? But to me, the meaning of provider is much deeper than that. So yeah, financially it's been hard the first couple of years. Starting a new business in a field that doesn't really exist. Like performance survival courses for me, and just there's nothing. That what we do with the only people who does that. There's plenty of places that is nutrition, and different companies who do survival, and different things that do mindset coaching and strategies and men's development. But to put it all in one place, that doesn't really exist. So starting a niche business is always going to be hard. But focus on the long game as well, I think, is something that's lacking in this world. And this isn't for me. This isn't a 1 year business, or how can I make money this year or next year. It's how can I make money in a sustainable way that's going to last me 50, 60 years. But also, being a provider, how can I architect a life and a job that is going to bring out the best in me? Because I can't be a provider if I'm a grumpy asshole who gets home from work from a job I hate, and it doesn't have the emotional tolerance left to care for my children, my wife, who in the weekends just wants to go to the bar with my mates just to decompress. To me, that's not a provider. Provider is someone who can be a father, a lover, a supporter, a listener. All the traits you spoke about in the past and the last 10 minutes that can also financially provide as well. So again, just getting away from the traditional the modern understanding of provider is just comes from a financial sense.
It's really good for him.
yeah, and it's been hard, and it took a lot of time, a lot of self-confidence, a lot of breaking the traditional norms, and just one of the things I like about Wanaka and this place we live is the mental space you have to think. And I found that quite hard in the city. It's there. You might have to travel a bit further and find your own little area. But I enjoy having this space here that I can think clear-headedly. I can form my own ideologies and thoughts and philosophies. And it's just having the confidence to back yourself. And I think once you develop that really good purpose, hone in on what it is you're here to do. When we first started, it was more of a health-based thing. It was more of wild foods, mental, all sorts of things, so it's changed a lot, but the direction is exactly the same, the purpose behind it. And I think that's what matters. If you can take the time to think, what is it that I really want to do with my life? What interests me? I don't want to be a drone. I want to be happy. That's what we're after. We're after happiness and health, confidence, strength, resilience. And I think if you can hone in on what's going to bring that out of you, and again, that can take years to do. That can take 10 years to do. But at least if you're on the path to discovering that, from there you can start architecting a life around it. And I think, this never ends. You never find your purpose. I think you hone in on it. But I think we live in a world now where we think, I've discovered health. Fuck it, I've done it. I've read this book. I've eaten this. I've drunk this smoothie. I've had this meal. I've found health. I've done this workout for this year. Like I'm good. I'm good for a while. But this never ends. I've got this sort of analogy I like, which is there's a stone here, and this is the absolute shittest, worst level of health, and we all know what that is, and that's probably the reason we're all doing this work. And you take another stone and you throw it as far as you can, and you throw it to the point where you can't actually see it, and that sort of symbolizes the absolute end of the scale, and you can't actually get to it, which is a cool thing. If you can achieve health, that's boring. You've already done it. But the goal is to always keep pushing, to always keep working towards, and just to keep on striving. Become an expert at health, become an expert at happiness, become an expert at love, and just the goal for me is just to become an expert at these things. When I say an expert, it's not in an obsessive way. It's just a lifelong passion, desire, purpose to just discover these things, to learn what I can achieve and help others with it. And I think once you sort of hone in on that and sort of get that mindset around that, then you can start architecting a life around it. And from there, I think that's where those big transformations happen.
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
You spoke there that originally it was the wild foods and exploring the wilderness, and earlier you touched on the pollen gathering. It's something I'd never seen before, and living in places like Christchurch and in Invercargill, where you see the pollen running through the gutters and struggling with severe hay fever for a number of years. Thankfully, that's gone. Can you tell us what harvesting pollen is about and what it is used for?
Yeah, it's a fucking pain in the ass, to be honest. Yeah, it's a horrible job. No, it's not. Excuse me. So pine pollen is the male sperm, essentially, from the cactins from the pine tree. So every year, you may have seen the small cactins. They basically dry up, release, and for a sort of a 3 to 5 to 7 day period each spring, you have the ability to harvest pine pollen. Now, it depends on the wind. It's very fine dust, so it blows away very, very quickly. And Wanaka is usually very windy in spring, so you've got to be quick and pick your days. But again, the tradition of collecting food, collecting wild medicine is something that's lost these days. It's a dying art, but I think it's an art that's very intrinsic, very beneficial, just, from a survival point of view, just to know what plants you can eat, to know where you can harvest medicine from. But again, it does something to you. It takes you on a bit of a journey. It connects you to something. And I think, we spoke about when there's a good father figure, you just know it. You feel that you understand it. when you do certain things as well that are intrinsic to humans. Again, we've collected wild foods for hundreds of thousands of years, and the last generation we've stopped. So we're still hardwired to want to be out foraging food, collecting food, understanding where it comes from. So there's a deep meaning and great meaning in it as well. But pine pollen's an incredible plant. It's a very good adaptogen. Adaptogens are very, very beneficial. That it comes from sort of the Chinese herbalism. Adaptogens help your body physically and mentally adapt to stress. So it can be used from a physiological point of view. I used a lot of adaptogens when I was doing training, triathlons. Ginseng, astragalus, pine pollen was a big one. And your recovery and performance benefits are just phenomenal. We look to a lot of these modern proteins, a lot of these modern stimulants for performance benefits, but shit, if you can get into these safely, sustainably, and sort of appropriately for what you're actually after, and work with perhaps a good herbalist on it, or someone who knows what they're talking about, incredible benefits to be gained. Very good phytoandrogen. It balances out the estrogen levels in one's body. Very high in antioxidants, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione as well. I think it's got all the essential amino acids, complete protein source. It's just an incredibly powerful plant. Very, very hard to collect. So you got to get a bag of some sort, or a big paper bag, a big plastic bag, put it over the tree, shake it out. Very time consuming. It's not something, it takes days. It takes a long time. It's I have no idea how they make it on a commercial scale. We try. This year we didn't actually get any. It was our wedding the week it came out, so we just missed it. But luckily I had enough from last year when Greg was over. So we try and collect enough for the season, basically the next 12 months. But yeah, just a very beneficial plant, and it's just one of many beneficial plants that when you do get into wild food foraging, you can sort of learn about, and the sort of properties and how they can be used and how they can benefit us.
And how would you consume that?
So you can put in a tincture with alcohol and extract the medicine, the properties from it, or you can just keep it in a powder form and put it with bone broth, put it with smoothies, just with a good quality fat. And just down the hatch. But tinctures are a good way.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you speak about, good quality herbalist. That's actually been my cure for hay fever. It was
Is it?
At the apothecary in Christchurch.
Yep.
Hooked me up with this tea. Couldn't even tell you what was in it.
Yeah.
And she said, heat that up in a jar and your symptoms will be gone. I think 3 or 4 times, and
yeah,
haven't had hay fever since.
Yeah, no, I mean, modern medicine is incredible. Modern medicine has brought us many great things. It's brought us bad things as well. But again, it's combining the best of the past with the best of now. Traditionally, I could talk for hours about wild foods, the domestication of foods, gene expression of wild plants. But there's incredible knowledge to be gained from wild plants. Incredible benefits to be gained from it. And if you combine it with modern understanding of it as well, that's gold.
Nice. And you spoke about cold immersion, and for those who might not be familiar with the likes of Wim Hof, I try jump in the shower straight away and let the cold water flow over me. And then I see videos of you jumping in the Clutha River.
Yeah.
What is it about the cold for you, and what have you learned, and how do you perceive cold immersion?
The goal for me is, what can I achieve? What's the best man, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? What's the best being I can be while I have this time on earth? And for me to be able to do that, success is on the other side of hard work. And looking back from an evolutionary point of view, literally 99.9% of our time has been faced with environmental discomfort. So the option to have a fire, to have heating, essential heating, or a heat pump, or a jacket is very, very new to us. That's something in the last couple hundred years. So, the last however many hundreds of thousands of years we've been on this earth we've been faced with environmental discomfort, hardship. So again, physiologically we're designed to be stressed. So we think about physical stresses, and that's pretty much the only one we encompass. We know we need training, we know we need strength and endurance, natural movement, we know we need these things. But there's other stresses like fasting, for example, like the stress that wild plants contain, the stress from environmental discomfort, as in the cold water. So, we know what chronic stress is. That's having a shitty job, a bad relationship, bad food, a boss that we hate. That's chronic stress. We know what that is. But there's things called hormetic stress as well, which is basically small amounts of stress, appropriate stress, that in a small dose is very beneficial for us, but in a large dose is very damaging. So, for example, if you're used to running 10K and you run 12K or 13K, that's a bit of a stress that your body can adapt to. If you try and be a smartass and a hero and push it out to 30K, that's going to be damaging. If I stay in the river for a period of time that I'm used to, that's going to be challenging for the body. If I go 4 times that, that's going to be hypothermic. So you see the difference here? So, one's chronic stress and one is a hormetic stress. And again, we don't have many hormetic stresses in our life. We have a lot of chronic stress, but not hormetic stress. And again, we've evolved with hormetic stresses for our entire evolution, basically. So they're very beneficial for us. And aside from physical training, which most people don't actually do these days, that's the only sort of parameter of hormetic stresses that we have. So cold immersion is just an incredible way to, I guess, pay homage and understand where we've come from, our evolutionary past. It's just a very good mental resilience and mental strength practice. It's an incredibly good physical health practice as well. It puts a stress on the body, and the body responds, if done correctly, with incredible benefits mentally and physically. So again, mental benefits, walking down to the river, for me personally, in the middle of winter when it's, -2 degrees out, there's ice on the river, that's incredible, that's frightening, that's hard. But if you can break down that mental barrier of, no, I can't do this, and you realize physically it's not that bad. Once you get in and you have a purpose and you have an actual direction and you have a mindset of, I'm going to do this whether you like it or not, physically it's not that bad. It's actually not that bad at all. And that's the mental barrier is what people put up around cold immersion. It just looks so cold, and it is cold, but physically you can handle it. Mentally, that's the thing you need to get your head around. So if you can construct that mental strength and resilience to get your head around that and actually come out of it thriving on the other end, mentally that's very incredibly beneficial, and the benefits you can transfer that to other areas of life are profound. So just having that mental strength, that resilience just to tackle hard tasks is extremely empowering and just useful in all areas of life. Physically, again, it's a stress. You go to the gym, that's a stress. The body responds in certain ways. The cold performs a stress on the body as well, and it responds in certain ways. So incredibly good for the immune system, extremely good for the immune system. It helps the production of brown fat, helps with the growth hormone, helps with insulin sensitivity. I've got a slide on here actually, which I can't actually find from my talk the other day. Helps break down the biofilm around chronic infections, something a lot of people are battling with these days. The immune system, brown fat, cardiovascular health, circulation. It's just an incredibly powerful health strategy that to keep in your arsenal, basically.
No, awesome. In the morning, I like to think of it, and I imagine the vagus nerve, which is one of your cranial nerves, which goes right down to your reproductive system. And I imagine that those deep, controlled breaths that I take in are stretching that vagus nerve and really trying to prime my parasympathetic nervous system, so that when I do go to my somewhat stressful job, I don't think it's too stressful, but when that I'm not reactive, or try not to be reactive.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. This is we talk about health and well-being, and it's nutrition and it's physical training, but there's many things outside of that. Wild foods can be one, the art of foraging, cold immersion, and we live in a world now where we're very reliant on others to make us better, to how do we do this, how do we do that, how make me better, give me something for this. But part of this is understanding the concept of self-reliance. I want to go to a job, I want to be in the best possible shape when I get there, so I can be prepared, be efficient, be productive. So, taking these strategies, learning them, honing them, developing them, practicing them, understanding them, it's just becoming a more self-reliant person.
Absolutely, and it probably goes back to this tribe again. But I get people coming into me, and I ask them about their medications, and one, they don't know. Two, if they don't know, they do know, they don't know what it's for. Three, they don't know, what they can do about it, and they just take a lot of the statements. Again, I don't know, I just take them, and it breaks my heart every day, because it's like, well, again, this is your health, this is your vitality, this is your continuity, your ability to continue on and share with people. Yet you're just like I say, droning on in a system, and
and I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the central theme with where we're going with this podcast is the need for connection, and also the lack of connection. We talked about having a purpose, having a tribe, wild foods, cold training, growing up, fatherhood, manliness. It comes back to a connection. And I think that's what people are lacking. I think it's what people are burning for as well. That's what we're trolling through Instagram to find, a connection to something that makes us look for something bigger than ourselves. That's what we need, and that's what we're lacking, a connection to something greater, something that we're actually intrinsically hardwired to be connected to, I guess. And you can call it whatever ways, you can call it one of many things, but it's a connection that we need, a connection to a lack of health, a connection or a disconnect to the medicines people are taking. But I think once we do find that connection back to things, start questioning a doctor. What are these pills for? Why am I taking them? Are there things that could be better for me? Maybe there's not, maybe there is. What can I get connected to? And once we really find that, like I said, that's when the big transformations happen.
No, absolutely. And especially this podcast is geared towards our generation of finding ourselves, and hopefully equipping people with some tools that, whilst they might ignore straight away, the more they're exposed to it, and like even myself, I've been exposed to a couple of things, like you say, that the book Sapiens, I've been exposed to, and yet again it's reinforced, and it's something that I think, hey, I need to read that. There might be something in this, but yeah. What's the vision for New Age Primal? Where are you heading, and how do people find it?
So I think the hardest part for me was actually quantifying what the courses are, what it is we're doing, a mission statement. That took me a couple of years to really develop. It wasn't something I just chuck out there. This is what we do, and I'm going to be stubborn and stay with it. It's taken a few years, and like I said, we've changed direction and we've sort of swayed a few times. Again, the goal for me is just to work with like-minded men who want to be the tip of the spear, who want to achieve everything they can, and teach them mindsets, skills, and strategies to perform and survive at their absolute best in this world we live in. So I guess for me now, I've really honed in on what it is we're actually going to be doing, and what my sort of purpose and passion is with this, and what's beneficial and what's needed as well. So from here, I think the next stage is just refining the process. I think I've got incredible knowledge and skills and mindset strategies to pass on, but there is only as good as the platforms I have to actually get it out to people. So for me, I'm just developing the courses a bit, working with online courses. We're doing a lot more online courses as well, making it a bit more accessible for people to get in touch and actually make the most of the information. So just making a bit more of a user-friendly platform, I guess, the courses, the design of them. Like I said, changing the name as well. We're currently newageprimal.com, .co.nz, but that website probably will change in the next little while. And even if you do type that in, it should redirect to the new website. But yeah, I think just finding the best ways to get this information out. And I guess that's the beauty of now is, we talk a lot about the negativity of the modern world, but, the podcast you have, this incredibly powerful tool to get this information out. So again, taking the best of the past and combining with the best of now, and just finding the best ways to get this information out, and the best way I can streamline the courses so people can take advantage of them.
Nice. And Instagram is New Age Primal at the moment as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, a name change might throw a bit of a hat in the works, but we'll be out there and won't be too hard to find.
No, awesome, mate. And is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think just what we've been talking about for the last hour is just whilst you have this time here, the coolest thing about this is even though we are in a world where there's a lot going against us, we do have this intrinsic feeling of we want to be better, we want to achieve more, we want to find happiness, we want to find love, we want to find connections. That feeling isn't going anywhere. So instead of ignoring it, there's people like myself, you, other people in the world who are actually promoting ways to make the most of those feelings, make the most of those challenges. So just don't. I guess my underlying message is don't settle. Be confident. Be happy. Forge a life that you love. Handcraft a life that you love, because it can be done. Be confident with the fact that you want more. Be confident with the fact that you deserve more, and become an expert at that over time, slowly, sustainably, and just keep pushing towards health and happiness and success.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Ben.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Make sure you get in contact. He's a great bloke. Cheers, mate.